All right, good evening. It is Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. It's 6 p.m. and we're going to open up the Town of Wayne Select Board meeting, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag is in the corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Board members, we are there in old business, item A, the discussion on church exemption has been removed from our agenda tonight. With that being said, are there any conflicts of interest coming up in the agenda?
Yeah, there are two abatements that I will abstain from,
Okay.
family members.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to propose to the board if an adjustment to the agenda in moving our executive session higher up into the agenda, if not maybe after we go through meeting minutes in the warrant. And then depending on the timing of Timothy Pay, after, if he arrives for his presentation after that. That's a proposal that I'm making, if board members would agree to that, or think that that makes sense. Or if there's any opposition to it, I guess.
Are we going in there? for it?
Yeah,
The only thing I'd ask is, I don't know if there's any folks here that are for something that's gonna be delayed until after the executive session.
yeah, we could, with that being said, we could move it. I know where is it?
Maybe move it after the tennis court.
Yeah, we could do that. So what we could do, the presentation, tennis court, then executive session.
Could we move the warrants to later since there's?
Do you wanna let Bruce give his briefing before that too? I mean, it's just for what it's
I
worth.
don't have one.
Oh, okay.
As far as I'm concerned, I think
Okay.
our meeting this morning,
All right,
pretty
Okay,
much, unless you
Nope.
have other questions.
Nope.
okay. So why don't we do that? We'll plan for Timothy, Lad Center, executive session. Well, I think right now we've got a minute. Why don't we go through the warrants and meeting minutes? If that's all right. So we'll take that on. So item 6, meeting minutes.
I will move that we approve the select board meeting minutes for December 3rd as oh no, they weren't the amended one. December 3rd, 2024.
Second.
Discussion. Okay, all in favor? All right. We have an amended select board meeting minutes to approve.
I would make the motion to approve the amended select board meeting minutes for October 1st, 2024.
Second.
Discussion. Oh, yeah.
Well, you'll
Russ.
just see on the, what is it, page 202.
Yeah.
New business item A, the overpayment that was stated in the previous minutes is crossed out with the new one after it. I don't know if the board is fine with the way that looks, or if you'd like it a different way.
I think that's clear.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Warrants.
I make a motion to approve the road construction and paving reserve fund use in the amount of $2,107.60 per culverts.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Move that we approve the use of footbridge reserve funds in the amount of $121.92 for board replacement.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Move we approve semi-annual payroll report or payroll number 26 in the amount of $15,103.26.
Second,
Discussion? All in favor?
Move we approve accounts payable number 27 in the amount of $268,165.15.
Discussion.
I'll give you a second on it first.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. Yeah. Now discussion.
What's
So,
fine, Frank?
the big one on this is the RSU number 38, payment of $232,915.37. And also, our contractual amount with Reed Field.
Okay.
Is there anything that wasn't budgeted for?
There was not.
Okay, all in favor?
Last, I move that we approve payroll number 28 in the amount of $9,801.05.
Second,
Discussion. All in favor? Okay. So I don't see Tim here at this point.
Excuse me, Bryce,
Brent,
or Trent.
Yes.
Trent,
Yeah.
I'm old. Okay, since the church thing was brought up last week, and there's a letter in there, you think we can just say for the record why we're deleting it? Because the state said it's not permissible? Everybody kind of knows.
Sure.
And it's recorded.
Yeah, we got an opinion from MMA that you can't do that, and that's something that needs to be taken up to the legislature.
Okay. Trying to find. Bryce, where's the discussion on the tennis courts? Might be right in front of me. I guess.
it's, should be under old business, I think it's, actually, it's under new business,
That's it.
first item A.
Okay, so we're gonna bring just the court project fiscal procedures up at this point. So let's open that discussion. Bryce, how would you like to sort of lead this off?
So I think, where we stand, we've made our first payments to Maine Tennis and Track for the invoice, the first invoice in the amount of. I'm just getting it out here. $108,080. And then, where we stand now is we sent in a reimbursement to the state and, they were offline for about a month. And so we're still in the waiting period to see that. That being said, we had another invoice that came in for October of $71,950. And currently we've paid $41,950 of that, leaving $30,000 left on that invoice. And so at this point, we've spent the money that we had in donations and the town had appropriated for it.
Okay, so I know there's some folks here in the audience that are part of this process. And I think Amy came here tonight, but I want to turn to board members first.
Let me,
And
give you my spin on it. I don't see any, thing that indicates that there was a problem with the construction. It has been done. The town has an obligation on the contract, and ultimately, however it's paid, I think the town is gonna be obligated to pay. I understand the problem being, and I think we can ask him to explain if he wants, but my understanding, based on several conversations, is that the treasurer questions whether any further expenditure is legal. Because the funds that were budgeted by the town and contributed by the citizens have been exhausted. And so to pay these invoices would require an advance by the town from unbudgeted funds. And I believe he thinks that this is impermissible. There always was going to have to be an advance from unbudgeted funds, the way the grant works. The grant is a reimbursement grant, so the money has to be paid before it's reimbursed. The problem we have now, there may be several things to address, I think. Number one is, does the town have the capacity to pay? Is there enough money in the bank? Is it a cash flow problem? And number two, is it permissible to pay? And I think I've heard that we have the money to pay if we need to. Is that true or false? Bruce, Rice?
With cash in the bank,
Yeah, can we pay this if it was permissible without creating some sort of a fiscal hiccup for the town or crisis for the
I
town?
think the projected cash balance that Bruce has worked out at this point, as of today, is $925,000, so.
Okay. And we have no $925,000 worth of expenses projected in the short run that we would have to use that for.
We will have some, we'll see some big warrants coming up with the road project that will be approving the use of funds, so. It's gonna decrease rather quickly, so there's a slight concern, but it's not.
So I think that leaves us with the question of, is it permissible to pay? Okay. I sent some information out to y'all. I don't have one for everybody. But there's a couple things. First off, the payment obligation. I know the contractor, I think the payment terms under this contract are 20 days. And the interest rate is 10.7%. Why do I say that? Because I could not find any payment or interest terms in the contract that we signed. Now, the contractor and his bills are saying 18% after 30 days. But there's a statute, a state statute on prompt payment by owners for construction contracts. And it provides that if the contract is silent, owners are required by law to pay the bill within 20 days. And if they don't do that, then interest accrues at a rate specified in the law, which is the post-judgment interest rate, which I think is 10.7%, although somebody smarter than me would have to tell me that. So if that's the case, as it stands right now, the town has incurred interest obligation to the contract. I think currently through if it's 20 days and 10.7%, we currently have an interest obligation of at least $723.81. Now, I'm only counting interest on the 30,000 that hasn't been paid. If the 40 was paid late, that might add a little bit to it. If the contractor's invoices are right and it's 30 days and 18%, then the obligation is a little less. It's only $310 because a lot of those invoices aren't due yet, if it's a 30-day pay. If we put this off until the next warrant period, which would be our next meeting, an additional $723.81. No, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. The interest that has accrued is $273. The interest that will be due if we put it off for another 3 weeks is $723.81. So that's where we are. Bruce thinks that we can't dip into other reserves to advance this money. If the town didn't authorize it, he's correct. The question that we've asked our lawyers, and they haven't answered yet, is does the town's warrant article to accept this grant, does that also constitute approval to front the money? Okay. If he says or she says yes, then I think it should be paid immediately. If they say no, then there are a couple options that I think exist. One is the law provides that the select boards, the town officials, can borrow short-term to cover anticipated taxes and anticipated grant funding from state and federal grants. So we could go to the bank and borrow the money without having any authorization from the town. That would further delay the payment, but that's a way to do it. Another way to do it is the town could authorize us to take the same type of a short-term loan to borrow from reserves. And that would probably be quicker and it would avoid interest to the bank. But that would require a special town meeting for the town to get together and say, yeah, that's okay. So, personally, I'm unhappy that this came up so late and wasn't addressed early on, like when the bills first started to come in. But that's the way it is. That's where we are. That's what I think the situation is. And I may have it all screwed up. I'm open for somebody, you know, including, Bruce back there to tell me where I had it wrong.
Are there any, before we turn, are there any board comments, questions? Yeah.
Just
right.
for the record, there is communication that if they receive a check by the end of December, they won't charge the interest.
At the end of when?
December.
December, okay. What's the onus on the decision to be made tonight?
Okay,
Well, or have a special, I have a
Yeah.
special board meeting to approve a warrant.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, let's say the lawyer came back to, if the lawyer came back to Bryce tomorrow and said, hey, the town approved this. It's my opinion that this was approved in the warrant article that said to take out the grant. Then my recommendation would be that we have a special meeting of the select board just to approve that warrant and get them paid.
Any indication about when the state's gonna pay?
They were,
Reimbursement?
I had been in touch with Matt at the state on Thursday and he was saying the federal system was back up and it would still be 4 to 6 weeks.
But it still doesn't get around the fact that there's still, it's the town first,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
doesn't matter. So,
Could you
And,
just,
and I've heard discussion about, well, if we could only get that money in, then we can move on. Well, that doesn't solve it, because if all the money came in today, at the end of the project, we're gonna be facing the same thing. We're gonna have to front the money up, so we need to address it and handle it right now. That's the way it works. We have to pay first. And so at the end, even if we get reimbursed half, somebody who is older and wiser explained to me, it's just like you're taking a trip and every day you you go halfway there. You're never gonna get there. We're never going, you know, we pay half of this, and we pay half of that, and we pay half of that, and at the end of the day, we have to pay out of unbudgeted town funds.
it's striking that it didn't get noticed before, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So,
So if we get, feedback from the attorney that we are able to go ahead and pay this, knowing that the state is going to reimburse us, that opinion will cover future questions.
Yes,
correct?
ma'am, I think it will, sure.
can we write this, could we have a motion that says if that approves it without any further ado, if the lawyer said yes?
Well, I think we have to have a warrant, and so I don't know, maybe you can, I don't know if you can do a conditional approval on a warrant or not, but it would just be a special meeting, that we get together, it shouldn't take 20 minutes. Uh, And if he would have called us today, Bryce and I talked about this, if he would have called us today, we could have approved it and,
Right.
but he didn't, or she didn't, whoever, I don't know which it is.
And so they will pay us, we currently have 30. We pay out the 30 and the state comes back with 30. So we're basically where we started.
Well, we still have, we have some other open invoices.
Yeah.
Basically, the timeline of the project came together a lot faster than it was thought it was going to originally. So that's just where we're sitting on an invoice. After we paid off the additional 30,000 for the October invoice, we have a invoice from the end of, we got it 11/27 for $86,075.
So we're gonna be behind on that too.
Mary Ann, there's a spreadsheet under
By
that
the end
blue
of the
page that tells what the money is. It's
Oh, right, I did.
$170,570.
I did see that and I didn't look at the full spreadsheet. Thank you.
At this point, are there, I know Amy and Bruce are here. Bruce, I'll go to Bruce first. Do you have any additional comments or thoughts, or would you like to
Well,
respond to anything that was said at this
I will
point?
recap what Henry just said, easier for me to understand. There's this entity that raised money from various sources, including town funds. And they've expended more than they've raised. If this was your own personal checkbook, you couldn't pay the bill if you didn't have the money. This is not funded, other than the original 40,000, by taxpayers' dollars. I, as treasurer, okay, and some people have trouble separating me from being treasurer. I, as treasurer, question the legality of using taxpayers' dollars on something that is not in the town-approved budget. It's not in the budget, we shouldn't be paying. However, with that said, if the select board decide to tell me to pay these invoices, we will pay those invoices. But if there's any ramifications, legal, auditing, or otherwise, will be on the five of you and not on me. I'll play Ollie North, I will do what I'm told. But as a financial person for the town, I question the use of taxpayers' dollars in something that has not been approved by the taxpayers' budget. Current budget.
Henry, did you want to respond?
Yes. I respect the treasurer questioning the legality of an expenditure, that's his job. Okay? If the town approves fronting the money, which is the question before the lawyers, if the town approves fronting the money, then the town has made a decision. And all the job of all the officers, including the treasurer, is to carry that decision out, as long as it's not legal, regardless of their opinions on what should be paid and who should pay what or whatever. And that's where we are right now. We've asked the lawyer to tell us if the town, by enacting this warrant article, has also approved advancing the funds. And if it had, then I believe that's the end of the story. Our job is to do what we're told, unless somebody says that the town can act ultra virus and ask us to do something that we shouldn't have, but that's not the case here. We should do what we're told. If that's not the case, then we need to take other action to raise the funds to pay the bill that the town is legally obligated to pay.
Okay. Amy, and can you tell us, what component or what aspect you have in this process? Like in terms of your relationship to this project?
So when I was on the select board, there was a need to write an RFP. We got a successful grant in September of 2023. And so I became involved in the spring of 2024 to help write the RFP that went out to get bids. And I did try to put a little bit of a recap in an email that I sent to
Yes.
all of you.
Thank you.
So the town did get a matching grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund of $163,700. And we were notified of this award in the fall of 2023. The community raised nearly $150,000, and then an additional $40,000 was voted on by town residents during the June 2022 town meeting. It was with Article 28 to provide additional funds to support the project. Also, during the June of 2022 town meeting, town residents passed Article number 32 that authorized the select board to apply for the federal financial assistance under the Land and Water Conservation Fund and to enter into a project agreement once the contract with that contractor happened. If you look at the fiscal procedures that the Land and Water Conservation Fund does require you to follow, for billing procedures, it does require that the billing be done at the earliest possible time, that request would be submitted for reimbursement from the town. The reimbursement request would cover a cover sheet and an expense summary, that there must be a copy of every invoice paid, and copies of the front and back of the canceled payments, the canceled checks, showing that the town had met their obligation to that contractor to pay it. So my feeling is that with the, the support of residents back in June 2022, and that we would be following the procedures from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, that the town does have requirement to make this payment. There has been two other payments that the town made. There was a $35,000 deposit that was made in August. Then there was an additional invoice for $108,000. So the first request that went to Land and Water Conservation Fund was in the amount of about $148,000, of which we would be asking for 50% of that. So I'm expecting that the town will get about 71,000, I think is that first request. And the other thing is that we're supposed to send those reimbursement requests when the project is done in phases. So the first phase was the demolition and some of the initial site work. And initially, my understanding is we had asked the contractor to split that into multiple payments so that we could spread that out a little bit. And that October 21st payment was that second part of that first phase. So that's another part that I think that we should, another reason why we should pay that. This particular award follows the fiscal year, the federal fiscal year, which is October 1st to September 30th. And just the way everything fell was just really kind of crappy for the town, because at the same time, in order to move the new awards over from the continuing awards from one fiscal year to the other, it was going to take a couple weeks into October. But then at the same time, the feds put in place this new software that they needed to install and then test and make sure it was happening correctly. And that put things off much further. There is a grant specialist at the Land and Water Conservation Fund that did come to do a site visit. So again, before we could make that first reimbursement request, there had to be the rollover and the new software installed. There had to be an on-site site visit, and then we had to submit showing that we had made payment. When they came to do the site visit, the grant specialist said that this was an awesome project, and he was very excited with the progress that had been made. So I think that the town, I mean, this is a great thing for the town. We've had a lot of folks working on this, and when this project is done, it's going to have a beautiful court project that has 2 tennis courts, 2 pickleball courts. It's going to be there for all residents, visitors, summer visitors, folks of all ages, of all abilities, to be able to access that court project. And I really hope the town will make those payments that need to be made to the contractor. We owe the money. We don't, the work was done, and you know, there could be some late fees. We've got the reputation of the town, and we would not want to put ourselves in risk for not following the rules of, you know, making a payment to the contractor. We don't want to put anything in jeopardy with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And then finally, what was the, sorry, there was one other point I was going to make. And now I just can't think of it at the moment, but. Huh? Yes, there's another part that's gonna get done in the spring. There's one more invoice that I believe that's gonna happen in December. I think that's gonna be about another $45,000. I outlined it in my email to you.
Board members.
If we were to do a tax anticipation note or something, although this is really a revenue anticipation note, it would really require 3 of these things then, right? including the December one?
There would be the, additional $30,000 from the October invoice. There
Right.
would be the 41,000 for the November invoice, and then probably another 40,000 from the December invoice. So I anticipate between now and the end of December would be about 110 or so $1,000. In the spring, I think it's gonna be another 28 or 38,000 for the rest of the equipment and the final cost.
And the same objection applies, the town has already spent the 40,000.
The town has to spend the money first, and they have to prove that they made the payment, that the payment was cashed, and then it would be reimbursed. The one really good thing is the town is already set up with the state, so that when Land and Water Conservation Fund, when they approve the payment, they will let the state know, and then the state can send the money right to the town's bank, because we're already registered with the town for that project.
Well, how complicated is it to go through the borrowing process? Is it like been massively complex, like work?
Probably not, probably as easy as a phone call, to start that process and then share it with the others.
I think the lawyer is probably gonna say it's okay.
Yeah.
So I
So
think
we're really
we should wait until we get an answer from the lawyer before we worry about starting up a bank, starting that dialogue with the bank.
Right.
So my thinking is that, absent an attorney's opinion, it sounds to me like when we agreed on this project within the warrant, that we were agreeing to a process that was laid out, which includes
Yeah.
paying and getting reimbursed. So my thinking is that I agree. The attorney will say, yeah, this is what's laid out. This is what was voted on. This was what agreed to. This is what we need to do in order to do this process. My only concern is, we can wait for the lawyer, but what if the lawyer doesn't say that?
Well, then we have to go get a loan.
Right. So what I'd like to do is make contingency plans before we leave tonight versus waiting for the lawyer and then finding we haven't done it and then having to have a special meeting just for the contingency plan.
Could I just point out two other things? One is there are opportunities that the town has to pay in advance for different work, like different FEMA grants that we get after, if the town experiences some problems. And then we have to apply later on after payment to get reimbursed. And then the other thing is that I know the town does get some help from Bernice, who has a lot of experience. And I believe that she has a lot of experience with these types of grants too, and would be able to give some good advice. And has she given some advice on these types of problems?
Yeah, I mean, I had spoke to her briefly about it, and I mean, she basically echoed what others had been saying.
I think it'll be okay. It would have been nicer if in the warrant, we would have had an authorization from the town that specifically addressed this. I think it's probably implied, but also I have a note here, a legal note from the Maine Municipal Association about, is it okay for a municipality to borrow reserve funds temporarily to pay for over budget items? And they say, no. And they also say the unauthorized use of reserve funds is a Class C crime, whatever that means. But it gets my attention. And so, because I wish we would have addressed this sooner. I wish the warrant article might have been a little more explicit. I think it's probably okay. I don't fault the treasurer for raising the issue. That's his job. If he didn't raise it, it probably would have already been paid, and I would have gone on without anybody noticing, but the issue has been raised and it needs to be weighed on by, I think, a lawyer.
And I think in that case, we've learned something and we can go forward correctly rather than, maybe not appropriately.
And I don't think it was incorrect. I just think it would have been handier if we also would have addressed that.
So we know this fellow's in the office, we're gonna hear from him soon.
So we're gonna hear from the lawyer, and the possible contingency plan would be the loan or possibly a special town meeting.
Yeah, and Mary Ann, we could certainly direct Trent to, as soon as he hears from them, to contact the bank and put the
How
things,
about Bryce?
I'm sorry, to Bryce. Yeah, I'll write myself, put it on my hand here. Bryce is right hand, Trent's is the other hand. But anyway, let's just tell them to do it
Yeah.
and we don't have to wait for another meeting.
That's what I'd prefer, because otherwise,
Is there-
if the lawyer comes back
is there-
with things that we don't expect,
Oh, doctor.
yes. If the attorney comes back with something we don't expect, then what do we do? So, yeah, just as long as we have contingency plan.
Okay. I'm gonna, Carol,
So I think this isn't the first land water conservation grant that the town has had. I know Lloyd and Trent as a student probably, and Hazel were around when the original playground project was done at the elementary school.
Remember that?
That was exactly the same thing, the same agreement, and this is the way it worked. We raised the money, we were told by, Leathers Associates, who were the architects and builders, what to raise. And we raised the money and we had, the whole thing went very smoothly. I don't think anybody but the, the town manager really paid attention to the funding. I guess Laura Briggs was involved in it then, but this is the way it worked then, so I apologize if, as part of the project, we didn't lay out specifically what was supposed to happen, but it isn't an additional expense for the town. It's just
Right,
doing the book work, paying the bills and getting it reimbursed. And so I apologize for that, but I really would hope that it wouldn't be seen as anything but a carefully planned out and executed project that has taken all of these people that are here numerous hours to make sure that it works correctly. So.
I just think that we've learned a detail of explicit language that for legal reasons we need to include in projects. But that's all I think.
Yeah, and if the lawyer comes back and goes, duh, it was
Right.
in the warrant article,
Yeah,
Right,
then the next time it's questioned, we'll go, duh, it was in the warrant article. But right now, I think we need to have somebody tell us that.
okay. All right. I'm gonna, one more comment on this, then we're gonna move on.
Ken Spalding. I've worked a lot with the Land Water Conservation Fund, the grants. It's been probably 25 years since I did that, but I did it for about 16 years. Working with municipalities, nonprofits and state agencies. And and this is the way it works. I mean, it's been clear, that's right in the grant materials when you apply. It's very clear the way this all works. And I don't recall ever having any of the agencies that I worked with hold up payment for whatever reason. Because it's in their best interest to make the payments as soon as possible and get the reimbursement as soon as possible. I mean, you get the money back sooner, despite this glitch with the federal, changing of their software. That's highly unusual. When you get your money back a lot sooner, and you don't get hit with penalties.
or reputation issues.
Yes, very much so.
So can we make a decision that allows us to move forward with sort of an if else?
Mhm.
If the lawyer says you're okay.
Yeah.
We pay it. If he says you're not okay, it suggests it's probably easier to get the short-term loan than it
Yeah.
would be to get a town meeting together and
Yes.
noticed and warranted and blah, blah,
Expensive as
blah.
well.
That's just gonna drag out our timeframe.
I agree.
But I feel like we should
Yeah, we can
make
do
a
that.
decision and not hover on waiting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you like to repeat what you just said?
I would move that pending the advice from the lawyer, if lawyer recommendation is that we are authorized to pay the invoices, we do so. If the lawyer comes back and says we're not authorized, that we initiate the action for a short-term loan to cover the payments.
I second it.
Any further discussion?
should we indicate the amount or just leave it? Should we say, well, it's for 100,000 or whatever?
Check's gotta be, I guess, I don't know, I guess we can approve it in advance. I don't know if we can or not. I don't know the answer to that. But we certainly could have a quick meeting. and approve the warrant. Normally, we have, normally an item comes up on a warrant, we approve it, and the check gets mailed. If the check shouldn't, but maybe we can approve it conditionally, like you just, let's try it.
Sure.
What I would, can I suggest a modification to the motion?
Mhm.
Why don't we move that the board conditionally approve payment of the invoices that are currently due to the tennis court in the amount of $117,575 if and only if the attorney provides the town an opinion that the payment is authorized. And then that could be confirmed at the next meeting, but the payment can go out, we've conditionally approved it. And if the lawyer provides otherwise, then we direct Bryce to go ahead and get a loan or start the mechanics to get a loan.
So I can withdraw my motion as long as my seconder agrees to unsecond it, and then you can put your motion out there.
Well, we can you can modify a motion, but
Okay,
whatever.
whatever's the easiest.
Basically, we're just adding the number. It's, right? That's,
And condition, and the words conditionally.
Conditional.
I think if you could state it again, so Kathy can get it down to.
Yeah.
Okay,
all of them.
are you ready, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is that the board approves payment to the tennis court contractor in the amount of $117,575, which approval is conditional upon receiving a legal opinion that the payment is authorized and compliant with all the laws. And if absent that opinion, the payment is not to be made.
Seconded.
Was that too much? You got it?
Yeah, but I'll listen to the
Okay.
thing later.
Did you still have the
It's got it
short-term
correct,
loan
but
in
it's
that?
not the tennis
motion?
court project, that's the wrong term. for
Court
that.
project.
Could you read the motion back? Please?
I'm not sure that I can. I've had three versions, but move that the board conditionally approves the payment due to the court, I'll change it to court construction in the amount of $117,575,000. If and only if, or I think you changed it to say conditional,
If and only if, that's good.
if the attorney provides the town an opinion and it is authorized. That
Then
it
it's
is authorized and compliant
With all laws.
with all the laws. I don't know, that's where I got
law,
lost.
Laws.
Laws. I can't read my writing when I write that fast.
I
So
couldn't, I couldn't.
And alternatively, we'll pursue a short-term loan?
Yeah.
I don't know who you're gonna attribute this motion to at this point.
It's a collective.
well, we had a motion on the table. There was an amendment to the motion. We had a second. We had. We might be able to vote on this.
Second the amendment,
Sure.
okay, second the amendment.
Any further discussion? Amy,
Well, I just, there are some things that are part of the grant that have to be approved in advance. And one of those things would not be additional costs for the interest, for lawyers' costs, for late fees. So would that be something that the town is gonna be contributing towards?
it would come out of our legal,
Yeah,
right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Because there wouldn't be, we can't bill that to the Land and Water Conservation Fund.
if you're asking who's gonna pay the interest,
Yes.
I think we ought to try to jump that creek when we come to it.
Okay.
All right, all in favor? All right, thank you. Alrighty, so I see, I'd like to welcome, Timothy Pay. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, he is here on behalf of, he's an MD on the Kennebec County Emergency Management Agency, EMS Physician Response Team, and he's going to give us a presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if he wants to stand. Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you for the time. My name is Tim Pay, like you said, I'm a physician at Maine General. My core job is I'm the Assistant Medical Director for Emergency Medicine. And I've been there about 18 years. I live in Rome. This project is separate from Maine General. It's highly supported by Maine General, but it's separate, so it's just my background. And I'm just gonna spend some time reporting out on this program. So on the 12th, we were 1 year active. So this, in the context of this, we started with a grant. We were then extended through the county's budget committee to make it to a year. The grant didn't carry us all the way. And then the promise was to come back and report out. What did we do over the year? And give you all a chance to digest this and decide, is this worthy of continued funding? Our goal is general county funding ongoing at the tune of $350,000 per year. To put that in context. There are 126,000 residents of Kennebec County, so the request is that gets spread out across the county. It's not squarely done as a little over $4. It's actually based on property valuations. So I live in Rome. It's about $8 per year for this program. That's the contribution of my county tax each year to pay for this. And I don't mean to make light of that because $350,000 is a lot of money in a county budget. So this needs to be carefully assessed and carefully considered whether that return that I'm going to present to you is worth the investment. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm coming from the perspective as objective as a measurement that I can give you and as critical of a measurement of our program. So I'll carry us through and see how I do. What we are is a group of physicians that operate out of a fly car and we support paramedics and EMTs on 911 calls. We also support the hospitals when you're too sick for Maine General, we need to be at a bigger hospital. If that's a particularly life-threatening situation for you, we get asked to attend to you in the ambulance while we move you. I'm on duty currently, the fly car is right outside and I hope I don't get interrupted. I'll go through the evidence behind this idea of having physicians respond to 911. So as a physician, any intervention that I offer you as patients, the way I was trained is it has to be evidence-based, meaning I have to have statistics that show that what I'm offering you has greater benefit than harm. And so a program like this, we had just over 200 calls in a year. That's not big numbers to gain statistical significance. So we rely on other studies and academic looks at this around the world to see. So I'll run you through what evidence we have and the power of that evidence and the value of it. I'll tell you specifically about our activities and then talk about the financial sustainability. This works best if you interrupt me, right? So please, as I'm talking, just raise your hand, ask a question. It helps me read the room because I don't want to talk too much systems and medicine. I want to make sure that it's understandable. So please interrupt, okay? We primarily over the last year responded to the most critically ill and injured. That seems to be the most common request. Life-threatening motor vehicle crashes, gunshot wounds, cardiac arrest, that were the level of calls that we were called upon. We didn't know how many treat and release, the other very mild cases we would have, and we didn't have many. That would be cutting your finger, you just need stitches, I've got a suture kit in my truck, I can stitch you up and send you home. We've done things like that. We've treated little kids with a fever that had a seizure, but it wasn't threatening, so we let them stay at home. We made the ER visit happen out of our fly car. But that really wasn't as common, and I'll show you then, we thought it would be. The big surprise of this was how much education we provided, tremendous amount of teaching. And I'll talk about what that meant and what that looked like. That was not anticipated, but it seems to have been a really high benefit of the The next page, which is this page, this would be the first evidence case. So when I give this lecture to other physicians, like a grand round at me in general, this is the core of the talk, right? So they're very critical of whatever I'm offering. They're gonna say, what's the evidence behind this program? Why is this worth the investment that you're asking for? So if I walk you through this, this is what's called a meta-analysis. So they took 14 different studies, compiled all the data together in one statistical analysis. And then they worked through to see what was the mortality benefit, meaning what were the chances that your life would be saved if a physician was added to the team, or it was just a standard traditional paramedic-led team? And then we walked through in cardiac arrest, which was the focus of this meta-analysis. And we looked at the first bullet down there below is ROSC. So this is the first acronym I gotta be careful with. That's return of spontaneous circulation. That's not having a pulse, getting a pulse back by what we do. And we always look at that goal. The bolded number on the left is the physician group. The numbers on the right are just paramedics. So you can see a higher number with the physicians. But it doesn't matter as much just to get a pulse. What you want is survival to discharge. That means you survived the entire ICU course and you were safe to go home, right? And that's the last number. And if you look at it, 15.1% with a physician, 8.4% with a traditional team. So we almost double your chances of living, is the summary. And that's statistically significant. So that's what you're looking for, not just a trend towards it. That's thousands of patients. So when I get this study and I found this after we did it, just, now I'm motivated, right? I have evidence now, right? It's not just what I think is a hypothesis and a good idea. I actually have other teams that have pulled it off and shown benefits. So the critique would be, so what? That's all over the world in different studies. What about here? So the next slide is what this means here. So this is it's not just survival to discharge. This is survival to discharge with mentation intact. That's the golden goal, right? So you have the same mental status you did before your cardiac arrest. And this is a ribbon from Waterville Fire, given to us as MD3. Everybody on this call got this ribbon. It wasn't just the doctor, right? The entire response got this on this save. But the intervention that the physician did was the intervention that got the pulse back. So it didn't happen until we intervened. So for me, this is my one example of life saved clear, right? The projection is, as this program continues, you stack more saves like this that would not have happened had they not. The other part that's important about this is the education part. It's great that we had one saved. What's better is teaching why, what we did, and making sure that everybody there and everybody else I teach takes that lesson and applies it to their next case in case I'm not there, right? Or one of our physicians is not. And that was clearly what happened here. So if you talk to the Waterville Fire folks that were present, they do things a little differently now because of this program, right? And because of this goes. Stop. Question?
Yes. Marianne.
Who calls you in on these? Who makes the determination that it's you that should be called versus we can handle this one ourselves?
Great question. So part of it's automated. So we request that the different dispatch centers on certain calls automatically dispatch us in addition. That's been problematic. It hasn't been successful. It's a good idea. They agree to it. Their leadership says, yes, we'll try to do this. But the frontline dispatchers, it's hard for them to remember. And our systems in Maine are not as sophisticated to have electronic reminders, right? It's really based on sticky notes and 3-ring binders, which is just how we roll. It's different in big cities, right? So what really has to happen is they have to either request us, and what they do is just call Delta Ambulance, Delta dispatches us, or we hear the call. And that's really what has been the most success, is I have scan on different radios and I'm listening on my call to all the different dispatches and I'm screening them. So if I hear something particularly threatening or that I can make an impact, then I will self-launch and assist. There's room for improvement there. So the radio frequencies are hard to hear all throughout the county. We're actually trialing a Wi-Fi based system where we attach a radio to a really long antenna and then put that through the internet. And then I can put an earpiece on and over the internet can listen to the best, clearest, broadest scan. It's almost so good, it's overwhelming how much information comes at us. But so lots of ways to try to leverage technology to hear more. Other questions?
Same question.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Similar question, maybe not. So how do these metrics work, when you factor in the time it takes for your team to get there versus the traditional
Great question.
EMS that might be on the spot quicker?
Right, so it depends on the intervention, right? So if you're designing a system of 911 response, there's certain mortality linked, meaning if you do it, the chances of living are higher, and time urgent, meaning you gotta get there as quick as possible. And the list of that is about 10 events long, and that's cardiac arrest with a shot to the chest with an automatic defibrillator, or a motor vehicle crash where the patient's unresponsive and they just are folded over and not breathing, but if you open their airway, they'll breathe again, right? It's a EpiPen for a bee sting. Those flavors, those are critically important to get anybody there as quickly as possible. So first responders, Wayne Fire Department, if you had a rescue component to it, or where I live, Rome Rescue. And then behind that is the transporting agency, which is Delta Ambulance or Winthrop Ambulance or Gardner Fire and Rescue. They come after. But the real urgency of the life save when you design the system is really the first response. And that's about, in some systems, that's a certain time limit. You'd want to get to it in 6 minutes if you live in Boston or Los Angeles. But when you live in Wayne or Rome, you can't, nothing happens in 6 minutes, even when people are volunteering in your town. That's a real challenge to bring the highest standard of care in a rural area. We're not offering that. That's not what this service does. We catch you on the other end after, often, most of the time, when the paramedics get there, or the other EMTs that are transporting, and we augment that care and bring the level up. And the way to think about our program in my simplest thinking is, if you are so sick or ill that you're not going to survive to me in the ER, then we'll bring somebody like me to you. Bring the ER to you, right? That's what we offer when you're the most critically ill and injured. That's a lot of jargon and a lot of technical answer. I hope I answered it. Okay, other questions, please? The next study is this page here. This one is focused, instead of cardiac arrest, on severe trauma. So the type of most commonly blunt trauma, motor vehicle crash, where you have a spleen injury or a liver injury and you're bleeding internally. This one studied the same thing. This is actually 54,000 patients. This is 22 different studies as a meta-analysis. This is across the world: New Zealand, Germany, Britain, US, Canada. So it was a great study to find for me if I'm geeking out. And it looked at physician response again, added to traditional paramedic response. And again, we see statistically significant improvement in your chances of surviving that injury. But the key one on this one was if it's associated with a helicopter. So we never replace life flight, because life flight likely will get you after your motor vehicle crash or your severe fall to the operating room quicker. And I can do some emergency surgery on you in the field, but not what you really need, right? I'm not going to repair your liver in the field, right? I can do some limited procedures on you, but really getting to the surgery is key. So yes, we have an impact, but we have the impact as long as we're associated with the helicopter, right? So we never say, if they call me for a motor vehicle crash, my first question is life flight been launched, right? And then I come in case life flight can't respond, because a third of the time they can't come. It's either poor weather, competing missions, right? We get them 2/3 of the time that they are requested. So we fill in where they can't come, or we initiate the care they're going to continue to do and then hand off to them. Questions on that? So this page, this was, I was critical of, we have one truck. It took me 30 minutes from Augusta to get here, right? And that's just halfway from the county over to the western edge, right? So my worry was, one truck, how can I have an impact? Where am I going to be in the right place at the right time? Is this really enough? So we looked at how many times was our physician the first, and this comes to your, actually I say we didn't really do this, but we did it in this case, right? So this is us being the first advanced life support on scene. And advanced life support is the difference between an EMT and a paramedic or beyond, like a physician. So 10 different times we were the first on scene. 5 of those times was cardiac arrest, where we have the highest predicted impact on life saving. So a surprise, I didn't expect to see this. I'm quite proud of it. And I guess we do sometimes get there early enough. Right, so, the next, this is just, we had a budget with $350,000 operating costs that buys you about 12 hours a day, 5 days a week of physician help. So how do we apply that time to the most impact? We just looked at how this data here that you see the barcodes, that's how many calls happen in a 24-hour period per hour. So we just looked at 12 hours, where was the busiest time predicted to be? And it's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday. That's when the most 911 calls happen. So we just placed our budgeted time square over that, right? And that's how we pick our shifts. So we're available ideally Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Physician scope of practice, this is a little technical, so I apologize. This is everything we do beyond the traditional team. This is what leads to lives saved, right? So blood transfusions, advanced medicines to sedate and paralyze so that we can control your airway. This is all what we do traditionally in the ER. This is just emergency medicine at a physician level in the emergency department applied to the field in the out of hospital environment. Question?
And this is,
Please.
this list of trade creative, there are things that cannot be done by an EMS
No.
or anyone else, yeah.
Blood transfusions can be done by lifeline.
Mhm.
Sedation, paralysis, intubation can be done by lifeline. So some of these, yes,
Okay,
but only at that top tier of lifeline.
Mhm.
The rest are not available to a traditional paramedic in the state of Maine. So Maine, our scope of practice of our EMS is reflective of the investment of the community in that system, right? So if you go to King County in Seattle, Washington, huge investment in that system, the paramedics can do more, right? But you can't, anything that the paramedics and the EMTs do is a physician prescribed event. That's my other hat as a regional medical director. I'm part of the team that writes the protocols for what EMTs and paramedics can do throughout the state. We have to be so careful of what we allow them to do so that we have confidence they can do it safely, that they have the training, they have the oversight, right? So some of the critiques of the EMS system in Maine is you don't let us do enough. We let you do what we feel confident you can do safely. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of what we're doing as part of this program, which I'll show you the number of hours, is we oversee that care. So I'm on scene watching what they're doing, the whole time that they're doing it. I gently coach, I gently nudge, I educate afterwards, sometimes during in real time. And then I use that information and go back to my protocol writing or my other duties. And I am, after these 12 months, way more informed on what's going on in the street in Kennebec County than before these 12 months. So the impact I get to have now from an oversight physician level as a system leader is tremendously more. I mean, this has been a wonderful education. So does that answer other questions? From any, please interrupt. So this next page says activity summary. This is really the year. So we have had 1,891 hours on call. I will tell you that reflects, I'll show you in a different slide, about 75% of our goal, 8 to 8, Monday through Friday. So we got 3/4 of that goal done with our staffing, and I'll show you details on that. We've done 211 911 responses, 12 interfacility transports. So roughly once a month, the hospitals ask us to attend to a patient when they move from one hospital to the next. Those are usually the sickest of the sick. The nurses aren't comfortable. The paramedics aren't comfortable. They need a physician on board to stabilize that patient. The teaching there, this is what I'm most proud of. Over 200 hours, 748 students in county. That's a tremendous impact. When I started EMS when I was 18 in Georgetown, to get this kind of teaching from an EMS physician, I never had it. And I would brush up against these sometimes, but there was one doc that would cover on the fly car for MC1 that was an ER physician, and I did 2 calls with him years and years ago, which I really enjoyed. But it's the kind of teaching our physicians, so 4 of my 8 physicians are board certified or board eligible in EMS, which is a subspecialty of emergency medicine. So 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 3 years of residency, 1 year of fellowship, now you can come be a part of this team, right? That's the same rough trajectory of a gastroenterologist, a cardiologist, right? They do same amount, 3 years of internal medicine, then a year of fellowship, right? So this is a very highly specialized group of physicians. And they are working shoulder to shoulder with EMS on scene. So we know all the details and all the struggles and all the chaos, and we can teach them through to best practice. It's a high value teaching. Plus our docs are just really good teachers. They're really gifted, so. Questions on that?
How many docs are?
8.
8?
Yeah. With
How many counties do they cover?
just Kenny Beck County. Yeah. And I'll show you each of them when we get there. You'll see their faces. What's that? No, it's a slide. Yeah, they're waiting outside. They're gonna march in one by one and all that. They're at home right now. Quality assurance, 232 hours. That's the oversight I was talking about, right? So that's specific chart reviews. Sometimes that's specific constructive discussions with people to improve. It's always constructive though. This is not a punitive process. This is a learning process. And community outreach, that's what we're doing. This is community outreach. This is the next page on teaching. This is just a snapshot of not everywhere we've taught, but it gives you a spread. If you look at this, the Mid-Maine Technical Center EMT course, that's the vocational high school EMT course right out of Waterville. So I'm in there roughly once a week teaching the EMTs just basic skills, all the way through to the Maine General Emergency Medicine Fellowship. That's a family doc that's training to be an emergency physician. And we train them on resuscitation, advanced skills. So we're training from EMT students to physicians, and everything in between. And this is what it looks like, just some pictures, the first set there. The top right is me at Fairfield Benton, right after a cardiac arrest call that I treated with them. And we do what's called a hot wash. We clean up our gear, we restock our bags, and then we gather in the firehouse and we talk about the call. What went well so that they keep doing what goes well, right? So your successes are acknowledged, right? And you don't inadvertently stop doing those. And then we talk about what could have gone better. And that's the constructive part. So if there was a struggle that I had to help alleviate in real time, I teach why I did that and let people improve. This is us teaching advanced airway skills to the Augusta paramedics. This is a surgical airway type lab where we bring sheep anatomy and we teach them how to do the procedure. And then this is us doing advanced airway techniques. This is us teaching suturing to health reach primary care providers. So we do everything in. Highlight cases are just some of the examples of the kind of cases we're called for. The ones early on in this year that made the most impression on me at the start was this non-convulsive status epilepticus. That's a mouthful, and I'm sorry. That's the type of seizure that doesn't stop and is life-threatening. Most seizures, 90% of seizures stop within 5 minutes on their own. You just want to avoid having to go through that, right? But these are the kind that don't stop unless they're intervened upon. And this is a subset of those where when you initially intervene with the appropriate paramedic medicines, the convulsions stop, but the seizure continues. And unless you're very astute to find it, you think that you've cured it. So 3 of these cases, the paramedics thought they had cured it, that the convulsions had stopped. The physicians come on scene, do a more in-depth physician level assessment, teach the paramedics, see the eye movement, that's a subtle seizure that's continuing. We need to give more medicines, right? 2 of those 3 were 2-year-olds. So this is high impact. And it's key for those 3 patients, they had a better outcome. But the teaching of that is how you assure that every outcome for that paramedic's career is now a permanent learning lesson, right? When you teach somebody in real time in front of a real patient right afterwards, that's permanent learning. That's not just, oh, I hope I remember that. Like that is high impact learning. So we do that over and over and over. So the idea being is that we're force multiplying our impact by raising the level of care throughout the county for every EMT, every paramedic. That's what, I hate this, that's what you're buying, right?
Please. The more you teach and the better that everybody else gets,
Yeah.
your statistics on the difference that the physicians make is gonna be
Close.
less.
Yes, perfect. That's like the ideal. If you can teach yourself into obsolescence, then isn't that the goal, right? I mean, it's patient care, patient outcomes. So when I looked at that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, that more than doubling your impact, my goal will be to close that, right? So if that gap is within their scope of practice, I will win when I close that gap. There'll be a part that I can't close. There's certain things that I can do that they just will not be able to do. But those are not as common, those are rare.
Where's that list of things that you can do?
Yes, exactly. Some of those I won't. But there's some of those that are done in other parts of the country. And so a lot of what I'm doing on system design is saying, why not here? Why can't paramedics give blood here? Why is that not an option? It's done in other parts of the country. What's the gap? And some of that is, what's the need? How often is that? And so what we're doing is figuring out how often does the county need this, right? If the physicians are providing it and it's often enough, then it's my job to go back and say, I need to spread that to my paramedics, and what's the gap for that to be able to do that, right? So that's the whole art of EMS physician work, is you're continuously trying to make yourself as obsolete as you can, right? Types of calls, you can just see a broad spread here. What jumps out to me, when it says 17 cardiac arrests, I respond to a lot more cardiac arrests, but these are the ones where I am directly involved in the care, right? So there are times where I get canceled, there's no chance of survival, so I get turned away, which is appropriate, right? So, but this is where we were actively involved. You can see, yeah, please, thank you.
Are these services offered in other counties around the state now?
Not in the state of Maine. This
This
is the
would be the only
only,
one.
this is the only program in northern New England, actually. Except, well, let me change that a little bit. Portland has an EMS fellowship that started last year. And they do provide physician response within the city of Portland. It's not as consistent as ours. It's not as, but it's the same level of care. And if you looked across the country in Canada, there's over 60 of those fellowships across the country. Most of them are concentrated in cities and attached to hospitals. But that's where you would see this type of physician response most common. Other questions? This is just a heat map that shows you where we've been. A lot of the higher numbers reflect higher population density within the county. So Augusta, Waterville, there are just more people demanding this level of help. The problem for me though, is that this is a critique of the program. They're closer to the emergency department though, right? So I truly think our biggest impact is the further away from those concentrations. The problem is, the need is not as frequent. It's a balancing act of trying to figure out where should we be placed, but that's why you do heat maps, right? So you look at these carefully and be sure that you're positioning yourself appropriately. When you have just one truck, it's really a roll of the dice. We just try to keep ourselves moving, right? And we try to, it's usually our teaching, which drives where we are at different times. So, but that's a strategic process of assessment that's ongoing. And then just a bar graph, another way to look at where we've been.
So it looks like you've been out of the county a little bit.
We do, yeah, thank you for noticing that. So often those are calls, right? So other agencies know about us, or it's a Delta. Delta reaches out of the county a bit. And so we will be deployed via them or others requesting it. And we will go to wherever we're at. So if somebody's in need, we will head out of the county. These are our docs as promised. And if you look carefully at this, that I put their hometowns because Bethel, I mean, that's an hour and a half commute to this ship, right? So if you're putting Augusta as the center of the county. These docs are driving from Bangor, Freeport, Appleton to come be a part of this. What also here is Moser and Klein are new grads from training who chose Maine General to be their first emergency medicine job. They chose it largely because of MD3. There's no other program like this in this organized of a team. So you have now recruited 2 physicians to Kennebec County to work here. And that is a tremendous impact for all of us when we go to the ER. That stabilizes our ER staffing with highly trained physicians. That could, believe me, everyone's hiring. An ER doc can work anywhere, right? So how do you make this county more attractive to stabilizing physicians, right? And this program it would seem, right? So You also meet people, they really enjoy this, so people move around, docs will come take a job, their first job, stay for 2-3 years. Their life changed, they wanna go somewhere else, they wanna change it up, right? And there are plenty of people hiring. You have a program like this, you stabilize, right? They have to really think, do I wanna leave? And someone like Klein is like me, where she lives in the county. So right now, I'm on a 2-shift cycle right now, so I will bring my truck home. And then I get up in the morning, instead of driving all the way into Augusta to pick up this flag car, I get it right from home. So I can cover the county from home because I live at home, and that's a nice advantage. Plus, I'm in a rural part of the county, so now I'm spending a little bit of time where we're far away from them. So there's a lot of that balance where you bring docs in, they want to stay here. This is something that's a real benefit in their minds, so. And then another critique, because I really believe in objective critique here. We only staff 75% of our goal. We need to do better on that. I will tell you though, the first 6 months, it was 3 physicians doing 75%. So that's actually a huge win on limited staffing. And then in the last 4 months, I had docs that I'm on board. So the last of which has not taken a shift yet. So that's going to be
Benefits for the doctor.
this?
Yeah.
So I
Do they
can
make more
only-
money than they would if they worked?
No, thank you for asking. So, I chose this shift today. I take a 70% pay cut for this shift, for full disclosure, right? So am I donating? I am donating time that I could be, this is far more fun than, in my mind, for when I came to med school because I took an EMT course as a senior in high school. Loved it, right? I didn't think I was gonna be a doctor. I was a history major in college, right? And I thought I'd be a teacher. That was sort of the dream. And then the medicine bug grew. I really liked it. I did it all through college. And I took some pre-med classes, struggled, dug in, learned how to really study, did better, got into med school. And then it took me roughly 20 years to realize this. That's why I went to med school, because I saw a physician that was doing this out of Austin, Texas, 20 years ago. It's just that this was such a hard system to build, right? And I'm asking for so much money to sustain it. It's not it's a dream, right? So these other docs, they know this doesn't exist anywhere else. So that's why, and they did 3 years of residency. And after their emergency medicine residency, they could have picked any fellowship or not done a fellowship, just started working. They could have done ultrasound, palliative care, intensive care. They picked EMS. They spend a year training on this type of medicine, and it's truly fun medicine, right? And if you like to teach and you enjoy the chaos of the street and the medicine and the acuity of it, it's a dream, right? So for the right doc, this is pretty special. But again, we're largely volunteering our time despite the dramatic ask of funds that we're asking for. We can Google us and see the articles. Some of these are worthy of doing. They give more details than I'm sharing, so you're welcome to chase these down. Just again, financial stability before I do that. Any questions? Good. So we started with an ARPA grant that was given to the county. That was $345,000. That was largely to do stipends for the shifts, but also buy a vehicle, equip the vehicle. Our monitor costs $40,000, right? I mean, the equipment, the ventilator is $17,000. So the equipment in here is a lot. And then we got the extension, as we talked about before, from the budget committee. I think that ARPA grant is done. If we're not done, we're close to it as far as used up, right? And now we're on this extension. Actually, in theory, if the projections are right, we're even past that as far as operational funding. So it's the county commissioners and the county administrator that are figuring out a way to continue us through this lead of a budget cycle.
What is ARPA?
ARPA, thank you. So that's the American Rescue Plan Act. So that was different. It was basically around COVID.
Yeah.
And it was awarded to counties, which was a little bit of a shock in a state like Maine that doesn't do much county government. We do a lot. I don't mean to dismiss it, but compared to other states, much of the governance of us is done by towns instead of county, right? So Kennebec County got $23 million, I think, or 21 million. I don't remember, Lloyd, how much it was, but it was over $20 million that then they had to figure out how to administer and distribute. We were the wonderful award with that. If you look at other grant options beyond that, that we've tried to take the pressure off the county. You can see that I have applied to a lot over the last year and a half. As of a month ago, we were awarded $236,000. So that was from the Maine Recovery Council. That was the funds from the Purdue Pharmacy settlement, for the opiate crisis. And that was distributed to states. So Maine got over 200 million to be distributed over 18 years, I think is how the lawsuit settled. So we applied for that, we were granted that, which is a huge boost. There's some technicalities to this that are important to realize. If you research that bureaucracy associated with that grant, the first group of awardees were notified like I was a month ago, and some of them have not seen a contract or money in the last whole year. So I'm in a hard position here when I come to the budget committee to say, look, I have this money, but the problem is we won't see that if that experience is replicated for the full cycle of the year. So we're gonna be saying we have this money, but we still are asking for $350,000 instead of 350 minus. So that's challenging. But it's important to be transparent, right? So the money's there, it's just, I don't know when, or how it'll impact, budget committee delivers. And that's what I have. The rest is just, we get a lot of support. I'm in the process of putting dollar signs to how much Maine General supports us, how much Delta Ambulance, these other, they give us equipment, right? So I resupply it at the emergency department, I resupply it at Delta Ambulance, and there's a price tag to every piece of every IV catheter, all of that are in-kind donations. So I'm gonna be working to give a dollar sign and a thank you to each of these, and also come back to the budget committee and be able to show this is what the true operating cost of this program is. It's way more than what we're asking for, right? Because of the support we're getting from other institutions. It's a lot of work to put all those into a spreadsheet. Some of you may know, right? Like, but now I have 8 docs, not just 3, so I can spread the work out a little bit.
Well, I'd like to thank you
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
much. That was great. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah, we appreciate it
Yeah,
very
thank you
much.
for the time. So
Yeah, thanks so
you have
much.
a hard decision, so I trust it and, but don't take it lightly, right? No matter how convincing I try to be. So, have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Um, Yeah, so I'd like to go with what we discussed in the opening of the meeting. I would like to break for our executive session. So we're gonna go, the board's gonna, well, if you make a motion and go in, the board plans to go into an executive session here in the office. And then we'll come back, so you don't have to go anywhere.
So you're not gonna do public comments before? You're gonna do executive session, then public comments?
Yeah. Hang in there, folks. We have a long agenda. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? Is there anything gonna be discussed on the town manager hiring committee? Is any of that on the agenda for tonight?
That's gonna come up in board member reports,
In board member
in the board
reports?
member reports.
Thank you.
But is there a motion to enter this? Would we like to do that?
Yeah, move we enter into executive session for personnel matters relative to 1 MRSA section 405(6)(a).
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
executive session related to personnel matters. One MRSA, section 405(6)A.
A second.
All in favor?
I will move that with, a great deal of appreciation, that we move to accept Bryce's resignation as interim town manager.
Do we want to have some predicate on exactly what that resignation was? Maybe have Bryce explain what he's resigning, just so people know for the record what it is we're talking about.
Should we have
Interim
a
town
second?
manager? No?
Yeah,
Or just add a date
Second.
to your motion.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, as of,
Clarify the
right,
date.
yeah, okay.
as of Jan, I'll start it again. I do want to say with our appreciation.
Yes.
I move that we accept Bryce's resignation as interim town manager as of January 17th, 2025. That cover it?
The only thing is, I think you're saying you appreciate Bryce's service, and I want to make sure the record doesn't read that we appreciate his resignation. I think,
Thank
I'd like to
you.
clarify that difference
Okay,
very boldly. So I think we want to accept his resignation flat, no adjective or whatever part of the sentence that is. Right,
would you like me to state it again?
please, if you don't mind, sorry.
Not at all. I move that we accept Bryce's resignation as of January 17th, 2025.
As town
As,
manager.
as interim town
town
manager. Sorry, it got hard.
That's all right.
Okay,
Did you get that?
Yes, I did.
sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Is there a second? Was there a
I'll
second?
second it. I second.
Discussion. I would like to personally thank Bryce for his service to the town. It's been I've really valued working with Bryce. And I really, I sincerely, with gratitude, I thank you for what you've done for the town of Wayne. All in favor? Okay. So. We still have some agenda items. I just want to look through here. Scan ahead because it is getting late. We've got the supplements and abatements, road reconstructions. I just am wondering. Do you think? Bryce, urgency on discussion on paid family medical leave? Or what?
Yeah, I think that it will probably take 5 minutes, a minute or two, I'll
Okay.
explain and so. I think
Okay.
That would be good.
So why don't we, if I haven't skipped anything, we jumped around some, so we're on old business, that agenda item.
Yeah.
B.
Okay, so, paid family medical leave, there has to be a contribution starting January 1st. We don't have a meeting until then, so that's why it's so crucial. I'll just read you. Employers with fewer than 15 employees will contribute 0.5% of wages and may deduct the entire amount from the employee's wages. Just for point of reference, last year, our total gross pay was $306,000, so that's roughly $1,530. Basically, I think what I'm looking for the record is, does the town want to have that be withheld from employees? Because it's basically giving us two options. The town can budget to pay that or we withhold it from the employee's wages, so the contribution needs to happen one of those two ways.
And it's 0.05%.
Yeah, for simplicity's sake, we haven't budgeted this year for that, so
Right.
I'm just looking for a
We have
motion.
not
Yeah,
budgeted.
that it would be withheld,
Got it.
and then it's come budget cycle,
We can
if we want to change that, so that's part of something we.
So at this
budgeted.
point in time, because we haven't budgeted, the realistic course is withheld. Is that what
I
I'm
mean-
understanding?
Yes,
But we probably have salary savings in personnel lines.
Correct.
That would far exceed $1,530.
for sure. My one point to that is, I think it would be beneficial. I mean, I would love to not withhold it, but until the lab rec employees thing is ironed out, it might be wiser to just withhold it completely.
So your recommendation is to withhold it?
for the remainder of this fiscal year.
I'd accept that recommendation.
You want us to make a motion on that?
Probably just for the record, I would
Okay.
appreciate that.
Uh, make a motion that the town withhold the required amounts by the Paid Family Medical Leave Act from employee salaries in lieu of the town paying that amount for the remainder of this fiscal year.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor? Okay. Discussion on ARPA funds.
So again, this is something with a deadline that has also been kind of on the radar. Essentially, well, I think we got ARPA funds back in 21 or 22, and we've never reported anything to the federal government. Should have been happening, but it all worked out. The remainder of the funds is roughly $30,000, but we put this in the category of revenue replacement. I'll just read you a quick excerpt or paragraph of why this is the best case. There's a general government service, includes any service traditionally provided by government that a local government has state law authority to engage in, including public enterprise activities. Spending funds in the revenue replacement category allows a local government to undertake a wide array of potential expenditures, including within this covering the salaries and the fringe benefits of local government employees, parks improvement projects, purchasing equipment and supplies for local government operations, renovating public buildings and facilities, and so on and so forth. So our funds have been obligated as revenue replacement.
And so we've got approximately $30,000 just to allocate by the end of this.
No, they've been allocated as revenue replacement.
Got it.
So they've been obligated. There is nothing that, the federal government that's what they're looking for. So it's been obligated in its entirety.
I see.
The 30,000 is what we have.
So do we
left
have to do anything?
I did the reporting all on the federal government's website. No, you don't have to act upon it, but for transparency's sake, I think it's good to have it in the
So
record.
what can that revenue replacement item be used for then?
So like I just had said, it could be used for, probably the town would benefit from park improvement projects, purchasing equipment and supplies for local government. There were some tech upgrades that would fit this, so we don't use our other reserve. Renovating public buildings. There was a heat pump question about the town office. There's also a list of general government services that we can presume as eligible for these funds, so.
We put in the road budget,
That, it's a question,
maybe we can get,
maintenance or they include maintenance or pay-go funding, building of infrastructure, including roads, cybersecurity, hardware, software. The town is gonna have to do a big software upgrade with Trio goes to Trio Web, which isn't cheap, so I think,
Plus, you were talking about replacing computers.
correct, yeah, and so it saves our technology reserve that has 8,000, so. This kind of, we don't have a deadline to make up our
Got it.
mind quick to blow
Got it.
30 grand.
Understood.
We have some, we should let it ride out, I think, so.
that's great. Okay, thank you. Consider approving the use of road reconstruction and paving reserve funds.
So move.
Second,
This, you'll see an invoice, this is the 98,000 on Innis Ridge. That was the total reclamation project, the invoice is in the packet, page 15. The board, I think, the previous board had made the there was never any appropriation of the use of funds for this, it was just to approve the quote we had got when the bids all came in. This came in a little over. I think originally we were quoted. I can't do the math that quick in my head, but anyways, the other one came in under, they balanced out, we saved $5,000 from what we had approved 6 months ago, so.
Got it. Did we have a second?
yeah, I seconded it.
All right, all in favor? Okay. Consider approving the use of road reconstruction and paving reserve funds. Okay, I don't know in that motion for the record, will it? But, Kathy, we've got two different fund amounts. So the first one's the $98,527.87 that we just approved.
Right.
Okay. So,
Do you want us to read out the full motion?
maybe. It was. Yeah, I think they were just
I
making
thought
it
you
better.
went kind of word for word on the
Yeah,
consideration
Just
there.
take it where you,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought you were reading it right from there, which
Yeah,
that's what it sounded like
Okay.
to me.
that's good, thank you.
Good.
So is therefore so moved?
Yeah.
Enough?
Yeah.
All right, so moved?
Second,
Second, I'll second it.
discussion. All in favor? Okay. Review of finances, Bryce.
I gave you this packet. I mean, this one could take a little longer. I don't know if you want me to be brief or. We'll roll with it.
I think. But what do board members want to do? I know we've got a couple,
let's put it off till next meeting.
I agree,
That sounds good, tabled.
we'll table. Thanks, Bryce.
Yeah,
Why don't we, I'm gonna make. I'd like to table
Draft group.
the draft.
Yeah.
Is that all right with board members?
Mhm.
We'll table that too. Okay. Supplements and abatements.
I make a motion that we approve abatement number 2425-12 for Barry Sauter in the amount of $166.80.
Second,
can I make a comment?
Yes.
I think I had asked the assessor, I think it would be totally legal. For you to list the numbers, so 24, 25, 12 through 24, 25, 24. On the back of this page in the total amount of $5,864.13.
Okay,
The only,
I'd like to make a comment because I have to abstain from L and M. numbers. So if you could do it
Okay.
in a chunk of two, then I don't have to abstain from everything.
okay.
Yeah.
Move that the board approve abatement numbers 2425-12 through 2425-22 is reflected on the abatement supplements sheet that we'll all be signing.
Second,
discussion. All in favor?
Move that the board accept abatements number 2425-23 and 2425-24 as reflected on the abatement supplement sheet that we'll all be signing.
second,
Discussion. All in favor?
I abstain.
Okay. Town manager report.
I think all I had was, we had talked briefly on the schedule for the upcoming holidays. We kind of like to wait for the state, but I don't know exactly, we had read through some listservs, what the state is doing, maybe you know for the
I do, the
holidays.
state is closed on 12/24 and 12/25.
Perfect, well, that's what I was gonna propose for the town office for New Year, Christmas Eve and Christmas. And New Year's would be, my proposal would be a half day New Year's Eve, close Christmas Eve, New Year's, geez.
Yep. That's, do we need a motion for that? Or is that?
I don't think
I don't
so.
think so.
It's like
Usually-
the most,
Yeah.
just to get the boards accepted.
Got it.
so you don't have-
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds good. Anything else from your? Okay. Board member reports.
Can we take the hiring committee?
Let's do it.
Mm.
So apologies, it didn't make it into the package. A number of artifacts were sent and printed. I'm not sure whether it was made available to the public. I see three members of the hiring committee sitting before me and it was copied to them anyway. So I believe you've all got the materials. There's a number of actions that are needed from the hiring committee and decisions. This is going to take a little bit of time. But I can try and whistle you through it if you'd like.
Thank you.
First thing is about decision about whether or not to use full application form or a simplified statement or nothing. The MMA recommendation is that is to use job application forms. The most critical part that they seem to point out is making the statement that candidates should affirm that any information they provided is true and complete. I took the sample language from MMA recommendations. This also includes the equal opportunity statement. And then the other thing that MMA recommends is getting a reference check authorization so that the hiring committee can reach out to references. So our choices before us are to make a decision to have a simple job application, which MMA recommends does get legal approval. We could have the much more complicated job application that I drafted, which has got a lot of redundancy with resume and cover letter material. It includes things like contact information and school history and prior job histories. All of that is redundant. The guts of what MMA recommends is this affirmation, and the reference check could actually be done as a separate form.
So if I understand, we're just waiting for a legal review.
So
of
if you want to
this.
proceed with a job application, I'd recommend the simple one.
Yeah.
If you just want to say no job application, we run a little bit of risk because we're not getting candidates to affirm that they're providing truthful information. And regardless, it doesn't have to be on the job application. Regardless, it's recommended that we get an authorization to check references. It could be a separate form down the road for those candidates that we want to get a reference check on, not necessarily all of them.
Understood. Board members?
Do we do background checks on people that are on the short list? I just don't know, some people have got a stranger coming, should we do a background check, and how do we do that? Is there any, has anybody talked to MMA about it?
I don't think I have not asked them about background checks
Okay,
specifically.
maybe we don't need one, I don't know, but.
But it would be. I think it might be beneficial.
MMA recommended it.
I don't recall any conversation with that.
So on the draft posting that we haven't got to, I borrowed language from MMA, and it says a background check will be required of a successful candidate.
Okay, good.
Okay, great, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
don't remember
see
that.
Okay.
So it's
I support your recommendation for the simplified job application.
I do as well, and I'm also wondering, I just would like other people's thoughts on this. If that simplified job application has to go through legal first.
Mhm.
it should.
Yes. Is that something that we can provide to people after the people that we choose to interview, or should that be applied upfront? And my only thinking is just to get the job posting out sooner rather than having to wait for more legal.
That would be Phil Saucier.
How
Okay.
quickly does he respond typically?
He's usually quite.
Tell him we need it by Friday.
For is this for if it's employment, it's Matt Terras a bit, so
Oh, sure.
And how quickly does he?
I've only had to work with him once or twice. I mean, when I seem to reach out, it was quick, but
Will MMA do this for us?
we can call and ask.
I think MMA suggested that we get our legal
Okay.
representative
Okay,
to look over our form.
okay.
And if we could do it by the end of the week, that's not so bad, but I would like to get this out there as soon as we can possibly get it out there.
So to expedite it, I suggest we take the reference check off and do that down the road.
I
So
think
that
that's a
all we're
good
gonna get
idea,
the lawyer to approve is the job application.
and which is basically just a legal sign off saying, I haven't lied.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Do we,
So
does. I'm seeing head nods around. Do we want to sort of encapsulate this? How would the board like to direct, like, we wanna we need motions here? Do we wanna just head nod and you're writing down notes, or how would you like to? What do you think?
I think it's adequate to put it in the minutes as.
Make sure we're in the minutes.
Yeah, I think so too.
Got it. That's good. I'm happy.
We're not making big legal decisions for the town.
That's great.
Next,
Go down this list.
I think, Ken from the committee, and I think you wanted to comment on this.
The committee hasn't dealt with this, so I'm not backed up by or given any guidance from the committee, nor am I constrained
Okay,
to say what the other people in the committee would think. But just a small point, I guess, is that I don't think we should be calling what you're looking at now as a job application. There's more of that too, is, I mean, my understanding is there are two parts to it. There's the part that says what a great, equal opportunity employer we are, and the second part is says that, they authorize us to contact the reference.
Well,
And unless you have something different, I was. And then there's the authorization for the statement that everything they put in the resume is true.
Mhm.
But I think what Hazel said, calling the simplified job application, and being the two parts that this is all that we do as an equal opportunity employer. And the candidate is authorizing us to contact, references.
right, so we can separate out the reference check authorization and do that before reference checks are actually
Right.
done. That doesn't
Right.
have to, that's not time critical.
Right,
The time critical part is whether or not we want to get this affirmation and what we would want to call it.
Affirmation?
just think
I mean,
it's-
they're basically affirming that they acknowledge that they've read and understand the
I understand.
accept or the above condition.
And if you go on MMA, you'll see a variety of postings, including those posted by MMA, and they don't even follow their own recommendations. But that was the recommendation in the hiring guidelines to get that statement signed.
I think this statement is very different than what I think of as an application. I support this statement so that people could say, yes, everything I've told you is true, think about this, we find something isn't true and you're out immediately. So I think this page that is titled job application is appropriate. It's not what I think of as an application,
Mhm.
which is what we were working on earlier.
So what should we call it?
Can we not call it an affirmation?
Sure.
I can't come up with anything better.
Does it need a title?
well, whatever you call it, that's what we need to put in the job posting.
Yeah.
So we'll call it sign the job affirmation or something like that.
Yeah.
Everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
So technically, we don't even have to have this long EEO statement because this was in one area of guidance from MMA and the very short equal opportunity employer was in a different place on MMA's recommendations.
I think as long as it appears once, we're good.
Because if we're calling it an affirmation, then the EEO statement doesn't really belong on there.
Trying to think of what it's called when I've signed these before
I'm not.
for different things. I don't know what they call it.
I don't know what they call it.
Equal opportunity.
Is it important? Is it that important what we call
That's what I'm wondering. Does it need to mean?
No, I mean, the simplified language came also from MMA and
Yeah.
they just say, put it on your job posting.
Yeah.
So we could,
it? It says job application, call it a job application. I mean, is there a reason not to? What's the reason?
The reason it's not a job app,
Why is it not a job application?
because they're not submitting, a job application, someone says, I'm applying for this job, and here are the information that you need.
Okay.
That includes my background, my contact information, the original job application, what that Hazel got from them, is a job application. I'm concerned that people are gonna say, what, I have to fill out a job application, I've got a resume. I just think it should be called what it is.
Call it whatever we want, we just need to call it something and move on.
All
So
right.
let's call it the job affirmation. I'm gonna remove the equal opportunity language because it's already in a different form on the posting that we're gonna approve in a minute.
Got it.
And I'm gonna separate out the reference check.
Great. Thanks,
And
Hazel.
then we will, do we still need to send this to an attorney?
Yes.
Okay. And once we, the sign off from the attorney, do we need to bring this up at the next
I don't think we need to
select
wait
board
for it.
meeting?
I don't think we need to wait for it.
I'm just making sure that everybody agrees with that.
I agree with upon the attorney's final,
We get it to MMA and post it.
yes.
Well, let's talk about a few other things before we
Yes.
do that.
Yeah, I'm just talking about this.
The job posting it, right? We haven't talked about that yet.
We haven't talked about that yet. So the next decision is how long do we want to post it? I'm suggesting 3 weeks is probably gonna net a reasonable amount of candidates. Some postings go up for 2 weeks, some go up for 4 weeks.
So
We
at the
just need
holiday
to
week-
strike a balance. It's like we're in a couple of weeks of holiday time.
I know.
Uh, So I know that there are several places, I've got a list of several of them that we can post. I was under the impression that you basically post for a month. You just give it to them and you pay them a fee for a monthly posting.
Yeah. it seems to be-
Some are out there for shorter than that. I was looking on MMA and
Okay.
they're.
I would say, given the holiday weeks next week. And people are gonna be in and out traveling, who knows? I think that week doesn't count. You mean, we can post it for that week, but. I would extend it beyond that, you know, whatever distance, whether it's a 4-week. That's my initial reaction.
I was started January 1 and for 4 weeks.
Would you hold it until
Yeah.
January 1?
I don't see if there's a lot that you're gonna gain during the holiday.
Send it to them and see how fast they can post.
That's what I-
They can post it
4 weeks.
in a couple of days,
I think
Yeah,
we
send it
post
to them,
that,
see when they can post it,
Like ASAP.
leave it on there for,
a month.
For a
I would
month.
say.
I agree.
I'd like to say,
yeah,
Okay,
I would
so-
suggest.
No, I agree.
yeah,
Get that posted.
We're saying post it for a month? Is that 4 weeks or is that a month?
for,
It all depends on the month. If it's February, it's 4 weeks.
Yeah.
well, I think that will be, I mean, that, the February, the month or 4 weeks is gonna be determined by the service that, where we.
Yeah.
We just get it out there.
Yeah.
It may be that we feel like we need to extend it anyway, so I think we're gonna be needing to talk about it again.
You think we need to talk about it again?
We may need to talk about it depending on the candidates that we,
Right.
we get 2 people and we don't think they're.
Yeah.
And we wanna go further, I don't know, that's occurs to me.
So what I'm tracking is we're gonna post it for 4 weeks or a month, depending on what MMA offers.
Sure.
Which skips us to, I'm gonna skip over number 3 for a minute. So there's a decision about where and when to post. Based on your research, MMA will cost us 250.
Approximately, yeah.
Approximately.
And then there's the fees for wherever they post it literally. There's some that are free, there's some that cost. I think by the month is what I recall.
So do we want to put it into the hands of MMA and with any restrictions? Like 3 sites only, just the MMA site, or do we want them to do a broader reach?
I think we're in a situation personally where, given, our timeline, we need to have a broader reach.
There's
That's
the
my thought.
International City Management Association that they work with, Live and Work in Maine. That's 99, the first one is 450. New England League, Vermont and Massachusetts, they would go to. And And then they also had Indeed, I think, available. But those are the ones that I have
Feel
on this
price on
list.
Indeed.
I don't. I recall it as being brought up, but not in this particular conversation.
Would you be willing to reach out to MMA and get more definitive?
Sure.
Like, what do we need? Not a contract with them, but
She said, send it to her and they will put it out there.
Well, does that mean that's on their own publications or for then their own English or?
They have a
Newspaper.
list of locations that they've worked in the past.
Okay.
do we need to agree what we're gonna pay to MMA?
I think what they do is they charge us for basically their labor and it comes out to about $250. What I will do is I'll get a hold of Belinda and I will say, okay, we're ready to send this to you. How do we pay you? What kind of, I will take care of it.
So we don't have to come back and talk about it again. Do we want to put a cap on it, like say $1,000? To, talk to MMA, do whatever you think is right, but don't spend more than $1,000.
I have less than 1,000 here, so,
Okay, up to 1,000?
yeah.
Do we have to vote on that, Trent,
Because it's,
because it's money?
yeah, why don't we do a motion on that?
Yeah, I'll move that we authorize either of the facilitators from the hiring committee to contact MMA about publicizing the job posting and work out an agreement with them that's expeditious and effective and costs us less than $1,000.
Any,
I'm sorry, I can't keep up with that.
I'll tell.
8:28, but I will get it off the.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Seconded about?
Yeah.
Oh, you seconded already. Sorry about that.
Good.
I'm there.
I don't know if we've decided when we want this posted.
I'd like to post, I'm sorry. Yes. I'd like to post it as soon as we're waiting on this.
Well, as soon as the
Review.
lawyer tells us it's good, we're gonna post it.
That's right.
I thought that's what we had discussed.
Okay, so when Marianne and I determine it's posting is final and that's approved,
Yeah,
we'll move it. Okay. So the next thing to look at, and we skipped over it, is this decision to approve the job posting. So the first page of this, I don't know if you've seen this before. It was written by the committee. Yeah, we did, and then I had to go put
Right.
the additional language in. So I think
Yeah.
you've seen this before. The second page of this was the language added from the select board perspective, which is the process and the EEO language. So really what we need to focus on is the second page first. There's a little bit of language that says, go to our website homepage, gives the link to get the town manager job description, whatever we call the job application or the affirmation. And for more information about the town of Wayne.
Would we put the affirmation with the post? No, never mind.
Yeah, I think we would want, and I don't know, Bryce, if you can help us with this, I think on the website, we would want to have something that says town manager application packet. Or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that doable?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So we put the job description and this
And the
application form,
affirmation there, yeah.
and that would be. And probably a copy of the posting in that package. The next thing is, instructions about how to apply. I'm suggesting we ask them for a current resume, the completed affirmation form, a cover letter and 3 professional references, and then I arbitrarily made up a email address. Is that doable? So I arbitrarily made up an email address of Town of Wayne Applications at waymain.org.
How do you assess how do you assure who gets access to that?
How do we, so we set up a, email address? What does that provide or
give-
allow for?
I'll give you guys a generic user, will be the email with a password and you guys can go in and change the password.
Okay,
So I suggest
You
that-
can limit access to this email address.
right,
Correct.
Okay,
So I'd suggest that at least the,
thank you too.
facilitators have access to that. And then we need to put an end date for our
It should be whatever date your posting is gonna go to.
so this is,
Whatever they say, if we post it on, if we post it on December 26th, then it's for 30 days, for January 26th.
I think that if we give them a form that they can, access, they can fill that in for us when they get it posted out there.
Mhm.
Is that something we can do, that they can edit that
yeah,
posting date?
so it'd be the posting day plus 1 month.
Plus a month.
Yeah, whatever day they are able to get it live, but I think
Yeah.
it should only take
Yeah.
them a day or so.
And then the next statement is the simple town of Wayne equal opportunity employer. A background check will be required. And then this next piece of creative writing I borrowed from another town's hiring. It's now not relevant. The position's expected to open in July of 2025. I'm just gonna delete that.
Yeah, just say I'd say the position's open and you want the applicants to tell you when they will be available in their application,
That's a good,
when they would be available. The position's open and when they would be available.
although
So,
wouldn't that be something that we would also note in or bring up in the interview process?
Yeah.
well, if I'm gonna be and not be available for a long, well, it's fine. It's okay.
Maybe we could,
Because we'll
I'm
get
not gonna
that,
let
we'll
them
get
die
that
on
as soon
this.
as we, yeah.
maybe we could say the position is open, please indicate. Your
Your soonest
availability date.
availability.
Availability date in your cover letter, or we could just be silent and ask them. Anybody feel strongly on,
I think because we are not sure exactly how long our process is gonna be, that maybe we ask them when we talk to them. Although that may be the reason I think it might be if somebody said, oh, I'm not available, right away, and they're an excellent candidate, we might wanna say, are you sure? So I'm not sure that we would wanna use that, as a go or no go. So
Just an information item.
I think I'm on the fence for not putting it in there and just dealing with it when we talk.
yeah. I gotta say, the ones I looked at didn't have anything. The only ones that had something were where the position wasn't actually open.
Mhm.
But absent that, I think
Yeah.
people would assume.
Yeah.
So from a process perspective, and I don't wanna hurry you too much over approving this posting. Process perspective, are you comfortable in approving this with the modifications we've discussed about the affirmation and the leaving the posting date open?
I am.
Which then puts it into our hands to get it to MMA
Whenever it's ready, whenever we get
When-
back from the attorney and.
when the
Yeah.
attorney weighs in. So we will need an email account created, which Bryce has indicated is possible. Do we need a decision, or did we already said that the two of us will monitor those emails?
So I understand.
Next decision point is what role, and what would we like of the town manager hiring committee, because their charge after they complete the, interview questions and the reference check questions, their current charge will be done, and they're scheduled for a meeting tomorrow to
Yes,
start work on that.
Can I, before we jump to that topic, can I just so I understand, did we approve this town manager job posting at another meeting, or is this our, I can't recall. I know- I don't think, have we approved this?
We didn't look at it last week when I was here. I think it was looked upon and you had to do some work on it.
Does anybody
I thought
remember?
we
I
approved
think
it.
we talked about it, but
Yeah.
I haven't finished. I believe that's my recollection, but
Cause we just made,
I'm an old
It
man,
was
I could be
kickback.
wrong.
we made some adjustments, we made some changes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come right out and say it. I really think we're limiting ourselves with that line,
Which one?
at least 5 years of experience.
Well, yeah, I didn't like that either, but I got pushed down on that.
I don't think you were pushed down. I think, we just didn't, I think we
I think.
were thinking it was something else, and I think that you have a good point.
I think given the situation and the circumstances.
But it does say, or any equivalent combination of experience and training, but that's equivalent, meaning 5 years.
Just speaking, I just think it's limiting.
Mhm.
If you have an ideal candidate who's graduated, that might be their first job, why would we not value that and have a look at that?
So,
That's my concern.
yep, I think one way to modify it is to replace and have at least 5 years of experience and just say with experience.
Yeah.
And then the interview committee then has flexibility to determine the value of that experience.
You can also
And I-
say,
And I've seen ones that would say something like that, but they would also say, we will consider alternative life experience. I mean, I've seen that on job postings
Yeah.
before. I can't tell you what to say right now, but I know that I've.
Yeah,
seen
well, I
that.
think that piece, Henry, is any equivalent combination of
Okay.
experience and training, and then it's
Okay.
left up to the judgment of
Okay.
the
or we can say.
committee.
I don't wanna get into this, or we can say, those with experience will get a preferential review or.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, just speaking from my experience of hiring and working, I mean, you don't know until you meet the person. They could have 40 years of terrible experience. I don't know.
40 years to do the same thing.
I don't
And
know.
let me tell you, the more experience they have and the willingness they are to come to a town with 1,000 people
Yeah.
and 2 employees,
Right.
that tells me.
I don't know.
Better look at this close.
That stands out to me as.
We've
really
gone
specific.
over and over it, and there's mixed feelings about it from the town manager hiring committee when we wrote this. There's mixed feelings about it on the board. I think ultimately the board needs to decide.
I'd like to
Um,
make a motion that we
There
omit
was,
that.
there was a motion last meeting on the job description.
There was, to approve it.
Yes, approve the town manager job description for posting as it has been presented.
Understood.
But we can still change
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I second the motion that we delete this and provide some suitable.
I think as it reads, so it would read, the ideal candidate will be a graduate from an accredited 4-year college or university program in public or business administration or a related field in a leadership. Okay, so it would take,
It's a very long sentence too.
You just put the word with in,
With
experience.
with experience,
In the
Can't be
leadership.
termed with it the way it is, that doesn't matter to me.
with experience in a leadership position in municipal government.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that opens
opens the door.
the door,
Yeah,
and we can determine.
Yep.
As a board.
Yeah.
Candidate.
Yep.
So I made that, my motion, I haven't made a motion in a long time.
I think you can make a motion.
Okay, good. So I would move the board to accept the town of Wayne, Maine town manager job posting with amendments.
We have a few.
With amendments,
Mhm.
because we have all the amendments we've made, including the
Okay.
amendment.
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Skip right along.
Yeah.
Okay, two,
the last one.
Yeah, it's just coming in.
sorry, I can't hear.
are we on item 7, Hazel?
I think 7 and 8 we can take in parallel. what involvement do we want from the select board for interviews? And what role do we want the town manager hiring committee to have for an updated charge? They do need to complete their current charge and interviews questions and reference check questions. But we need to determine what our interview committee will look like.
And we both do believe that, we should have some representation from that committee on the interview committee.
Oh, yeah. I would propose the hiring committee has completed their charge with our thanks and gratitude, and that's the end of it, but that's just my opinion. And
Well-
you guys are on the committee, you know, but then we're gonna have to decide what role is this gonna have on these interviews.
Well, somebody's gonna need to do the work on the interview questions.
Yeah, that's part
that's
of
already
their
covered.
charge.
Okay, okay, got
Yeah,
it.
no, that, you need to complete the current charge.
Okay, I thought you were
Yes,
saying, I
ma'am.
think
No,
we're
no,
good.
no, I'm saying, when the current charge is completed, thank you.
I second what Henry's saying. I think that after this charge, I think the committee's completed their work as charged
And-
with gratitude.
And you've done a lot of work, and it's been a lot of meetings, and
Yeah.
thank you, but.
We have
I
a
think
whole new form of town government because of this committee.
Yeah.
We've finalized that. I think that's huge.
I think the biggest artifact is the job description.
Mhm.
Because
That's
that
big
sets the
too.
foundation.
Well, that's the
It's the
work.
foundation for hiring, but it's the foundation for ongoing performance management, because we have something and we say you're performing, you're not performing, you're performing, you need improvement,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. We've got something super duper concrete.
I'm concerned about the process and what that process, how that would look to have outside of elected officials be on an interview committee in terms of perceptions of bias and subjectivity and what that process would look like to make it fair. So I'm leaning towards having the select board be the interview committee based on those concerns.
Yeah, I think,
That's my thought on
I
it.
mean, the flip side of that is, do we have somebody in an advisory function? But it is a personnel.
I
matter.
don't think that our idea was that people, and I think MT had something to say, but I don't think that the thought was that those people would necessarily have a voting position on the interview committee, but I don't know if they're,
I didn't, yeah, understood.
yeah,
understood.
okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just I know that I struggle with even the process of in general committees in the town with applicants on, how, who can come and who can, it's just, I think it presents challenges where I think being the elected officials as determined by the legislative body is very clear in who is represented for.
No, that's a
And
good
that,
point.
that sort of speaks to, yeah, that's my thought on that matter. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. But
If I could add, I think the committee just felt, because we do have people on the committee who have had extensive, not myself, but extensive experience in hiring
Mhm.
in their current positions. If the board would consider one or even two members sitting in as non-voting, of course, members of the hiring committee, and maybe able to offer, and silent, maybe able to offer to the board feedback on the candidates.
no, I totally understand where that opinion is coming from, and obviously I'm one of five, I've sort of said my thoughts on that. And yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I'm reluctant to,
Do we need
do
a
otherwise.
motion on that? Of some sort, or just?
I don't know, I mean, the conversation, so I'm just stating my thoughts on it.
Well, I think it's good, I mean, it's gonna be a little difficult. We need to think about how we're going to put together a committee anyway, because three of us can't do it.
Yes, we can, because we can meet in executive session. Well, we might have to have a meeting, but it's a big proper executive session deal
Well,
because resumes, there's a deal that says resumes are private
Mhm.
until you hire somebody, and then the
Yep.
successful hiree's resume is public.
Yeah.
And there's a deal in the executive sessions or matters that by law have to be private.
So,
So anytime you're dealing with a resume, now, it's still a meeting. I think we need to talk to MMA about how we might be able to do that.
what the best
What the
method is.
mechanics of that is, but I do know that it doesn't have to, the interview is not in a public forum.
Yeah, right.
And let's ask MMA, they'll tell us what they think is good.
Is the attorney that you've spoken to probably the best way to do that? Or
Well,
just, I can talk to labor.
Yeah, and, I don't remember her name. It's the day that you were going to
Right.
to join, and wasn't, I don't remember her name. That's why I said it's a lady. She is an attorney.
That's what I thought.
Wasn't-
No, I
it
have her
wasn't-
email
it
right
wasn't the
here.
receptionist that I talked to.
I have an email
Yeah.
right here, so I've got her. If Belinda can't help me with that, I will reach out to
Okay.
the attorney.
Yeah,
So you're reaching out to the attorney on,
On how the
Participate.
Yeah.
best way for us to go forward with interviews.
and
in
we
terms
have
of
time.
participants,
In terms of how we would
Process.
do it as a board,
got it,
Yeah.
in terms of the process, in terms of who would put together, who would be in the committee.
I understand, okay.
Yeah.
So.
And I should, before I finish that, depending on results of this conversation, my opinion could change. But that's my opinion of this moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's important, it's an important thought. And I respect where you're coming from in terms of the fact that the town has hired us. So I'll talk to them and see what they say.
So Marion will find out what the recommendation is. We still need to decide. If we want to do a subset of the select board, if allowed, the first round of interviews, or if we want to do a full board.
Hazel, do you think we could put that off to another meeting since we don't even have a
Yes, we
posted deal yet? I mean, our job's not posted yet, interviews, it's not gonna happen until
Okay.
we have a couple more meetings.
Yeah, we can defer that.
That can be a
There's
next
a couple of
action.
other actions that need to happen that we can also defer. One is, we do need to look at the town manager contract that needs some review. I'm suggesting HS and HS probably might be able to take action on that. That would be, me and Henry can probably add some comment and bring that back to the board, but again, that could be deferred. We do need to finalize the interview questions. And again, do we want to delegate that to the subset?
Let-
Or defer that and,
Let's see
We've got
what
a little time.
we get from MMA.
okay,
Yeah, and we're not gonna be interviewing
yeah,
probably before our next meeting, so we
Yeah.
can talk about that at the meeting.
next meeting. And then there's something called an interview analysis form recommended by MMA. And I said I'd be willing to draft something for select board review in an upcoming meeting. Again, it doesn't have to precede the posting, we'll put the posting out. One of the elements that we actually need in order to complete that is the interview questions.
Hmm.
I live and eat and breathe these things on a pretty frequent basis in my real paid job. So I'm not uncomfortable with moving forward with what MMA recommended and pulling from my
I think that's great.
outside knowledge. I think, Marianne, you had a question that surfaced around select board priorities.
So early on in this process, Stan had solicited individuals' priorities in terms of what kind of a person are we looking for, not what is the job description, what is requirement for the job, but some thoughts about exactly who we're looking for, what do we hope this person to be doing, how this person will go forward in their job, relate to people and relate to the town. Teresa speaks to this much better than I did, but she had suggested it as a result of speaking with some other local or towns in our area and the way that they viewed hiring somebody and bringing somebody on board in terms of the board's clear intention as to who they really want to be in their town, not do we all agree on the job description, but what are we looking for? More of a vision statement, I think. And I don't think that that's something that we could just do tonight to chat about it. I think that probably before the interviews come in, I would like to see us talk about what our priorities are. Who is it we're looking for, you know?
That might be,
yes.
that might be a good work session before, for the board to do as a workshop session.
I think that'd be perfect.
And maybe Teresa might be able to spare some time to come in and share thoughts with us on that.
I think that that's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Did we clarify, does the board need to officially? We sort of acknowledged that the committee work is wrapping up after the interview questions, is that? And then that, is that what I understand? That's your next,
Yes.
that's,
We
but there
can-
was some open-ended question around the.
Yeah, we hadn't really done a vote on that. I mean, I guess the issue is, do we want to modify and expand the committee's charge?
That's what I'm getting back to.
That would be I think that's the thing on our plate tonight.
Yeah.
There is one more thing that we need to discuss, and that's a public review or a public presentation of the committee, which they had suggested and requested. Just, this is what we've been doing. This is how it's been going. So I also want to just bring that up.
Mm.
It could be 15 minutes, depending on what the community wanted to ask them. But given this has taken so long,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, just an opportunity.
I thought that was
Yeah.
previously decided that we were gonna do it, and the committee is working on a report to bring.
There's a report out there. We really wanted to get that notification in the messenger. I don't think that that's gonna happen. So we'll have to get it out some other way, but the request was that we have that time during our January 7th meeting. We've got a full meeting on January 7th.
Yeah.
How does the board feel about having some question and answers with the community?
I don't. My personal opinion is. The briefing's fine. As far as, are we gonna take questions and feedback from the community? What are we going to do with that feedback? If the community, if somebody says, I don't like this, or somebody says, I do like this, or whatever they say. Is that going to impact our course? If it isn't, then I don't think we ought to ask them. But it could be a briefing to explain what's happening. But if you think it'll make people feel better to talk, then that's okay too. But I don't want to ask somebody to talk unless I'm prepared to listen and change my course of action based on what they say.
I also don't feel like it would be a situation in which we are going to change any course of action.
So then let's give them a briefing.
Yeah.
I think that basically is the way that it was set up.
Yeah, and you
When
still have
people just-
public comments at the end of
Right,
that.
exactly.
People are gonna say what they want to say. You're gonna have a public comment at the end of
And I
the
think
end of
that
the board
that's,
meeting.
I
And
mean, questions and answers is just. What is your timeline? What are you
And-
doing
and-
right now?
a question and answer,
So
who's gonna
briefing,
answer the question? The briefer is going to speak for the committee. That's not the questions and answers. I don't think it's gonna work. It should just be a briefing. in
I
my
thought I
opinion.
thought that was agreed at the last meeting, but it was very late at night. So,
That we would have questions and answers?
no, that
Oh.
it was
Yeah,
just
just
gonna be
yeah,
a
it was gonna be a
report,
Yeah.
report and,
and,
yes,
Mhm.
and it wasn't soliciting input. It was
Yeah.
just a report out of what the committee was charged with, what they've accomplished. I think
And the timeline of the
The
board in
timeline,
terms
there
of
was some
how we're
concerns.
moving forward.
Right, there was some concerns from the public because things appeared to have taken a long time, which we can speak to, because we had to get through the town meeting to do the formal governance, to get that.
So maybe,
sorted
I
out.
would suggest then, maybe the action to the board for disbanding the committee could happen after that briefing on the seventh,
Yeah, and I don't know that we have to disband them. When their charge is done, it's done.
or whatever that
But
is.
whatever, yeah, whatever, sure.
Well, we
So
have to take
that's
that
fine. I
message
think-
back. We've
I
got-
think that briefing should be part of their job, that's right, so that I agree with you.
So I think that's what, yeah.
So I'd like to be able to, we need to take a message back. We've got three of the committees sitting in front of us.
Mhm.
In a meeting tomorrow, but we need to acknowledge to the committee that there are no more tasks being assigned at this point.
And an acknowledgement that if we're going to be briefing on the seventh, that is the date, that is our target date.
And we appreciate all the work you guys have done.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that.
Okay,
We had good facilitators as well.
oh, that's kind of,
Yes,
Okay.
I just had a question, the questions, where is that with the committee? That was gonna be
Finishing it.
investigated with MMA or? Is the committee gonna be working on any of the questions?
so,
Yes,
so
that's good.
tomorrow night, we're supposed to have a
Yes.
meeting and just briefly, tomorrow night,
Yeah, no problem.
we're supposed to have a meeting, go over, Ford has put together a quick review for us. And then go into executive session and start to vote on the questions tomorrow night.
Thank you, I just need clarification on that, okay?
Cause that's part of the original charge.
Exactly.
Thank you. Okay, understood. Okay.
Any comment?
Okay, other board comments? Are we good?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
Um,
that Hazel and Mary Ann
Yeah.
felt, yeah,
Yeah, because I think we've deferred a bunch of stuff,
okay.
that
This is really helpful. I appreciate
take up in the
This
next
is-
meeting.
summary and information. It was really, thank
It
you.
was good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thanks.
Other board members?
Okay, I've got on there's code, general code.
Yes,
Remember we some were taken care of?
yes.
We have four that are ours, the amusements, culverts, parks and roads. And the other four, my understanding is Chip in the planning board.
Sure thing.
Okay, this is a packet for y'all to look at. It should take care of the amusements ordinance. And with this, we ought to be able to knock it out at the next meeting. And you just take it to look at it at your leisure.
So this is basically copies of what's on the internet.
And
Right now.
and a memo from me and some statutes and, yeah, and what we need, I think, to answer the questions and at the meeting, all we have to do is go, I think this one maybe has 6 questions, is what do we think, how do you think we should answer this, how do you think we should answer that? Before that, I'll get the culverts out, I would have had it tonight, but then other things came up. And that'll be 2 of our 4. And we can, then those are 2 easy ones, and we'll be finished with it in February. And can give this stuff to Chip and we'll be done with our part.
Great. Thank you for putting this together.
That's great. Yeah, that
Great.
website is useful.
That's perfect.
Uh-huh.
Other board members?
There's 3 things that, at risk of getting too deep into it, I'd just like to make note of the fact that I'm still kind of curious about some kind of sit rep on what's happened at the Grange Hall.
Mhm.
I think you've had that on your agenda. I'm interested in this recent round of emails of what is to be done with the problems of the Jellystone, which are 2, there are some violations, there are apparent violations of the ordinance. And then there's the question of the boundary. I'd like to know something about what has been done. And the third one is respecting 100 acre wood has just what we discussed in the bridge in the executive session with our proposed position. Has that been conveyed to the attorney and the attorney working on it? And we can handle all that next time. I think, unless you tell me otherwise. So could you be prepared to,
I had reached out to the Grange Hall and they were gonna prepare something
Okay,
for me. I
that'll-
never
that'll be
saw
good.
it, but I will, I'm sure I should see, I'll
you
follow
you
up.
could just follow up on that, that's all I wanted to do.
So do you want to have those on the itinerary or the agenda for next week, next meeting?
If it's right, if it's not, at least,
Well, maybe on those points, not to. Bryce, can you? Well, because the Jellystone might be some stuff that Chip might be aware of.
Mhm.
And then we can determine, you know, whether it's in our wheelhouse or not,
right, exactly.
at least get an update.
Yeah.
Okay,
But it is an enforcement question, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know whether.
correct.
So
Who is the enforcer? Got it. Understood.
Yep.
Okay. Other select board members.
The rec center meeting
Yeah.
hasn't been scheduled yet. With the subcommittee, Hazel and Henry. It's been back and forth and I don't know where that's gonna
Yeah, I
land.
gotta reach out, with Eric and get that ironed out.
Okay. Public comments. Yeah, Ken.
I'm interested to know how the town manager responsibilities will be fulfilled post January 17th.
That's a good question.
So are we,
I think part of the. I don't think the board has discussed that at this point to give a. Clear path forward. I mean, I don't, the news is, I mean, it's breaking
Yes.
news, so. Yeah, I'm not prepared, yeah,
After public comment, I just.
yeah, sure thing. Other public comments? Okay, yeah, Bryce.
Perfect, so probably for the record, this would be better under the town manager's report, but I did just want to take the opportunity because I'm all about transparency, you know, with what's transpired. I wanted to say I'm gracious for this opportunity. The last year and 3 months at the spry age of 26 is kind of, it's been a whirlwind. I guess in terms of how I got to this point to resign, there's been, multiple reasons, and I think the public, I just want to express so there's no hearsay, how come this, that, so basically just my statement would be, the town is facing numerous significant challenges that require more than interim management to address effectively. The town would greatly benefit from the stability and long-term vision provided by a permanent town manager, which is essential for addressing ongoing and future challenges. It is crucial to have a permanent manager in place as soon as possible to work with me during the upcoming budget season, ensuring a seamless transition and effective financial planning. I'm committed to ensuring a smooth transition and will actively assist in onboarding the next town manager to ensure that they can hit the ground running.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
I'm skipping discussion.